Okay, so good evening to everyone. Hope you're doing great and thank you for joining. And also, sorry for the late start. Sorry for the late start. I have some problem here with electricity. They keep seizing lights just at the dying moment. But once again, thank you all for joining despite the late start. So, is there anyone here who did the previous assignment? Okay, if you did not do the previous assignment, please indicate. Are you indicating for doing or not doing? Faith. I didn't really get. You can type in the chat. I didn't really get what you said. Okay, so can you? Okay, why didn't you send it in the group? Okay, can you show me? Can you show me what you did, so we can review it? Sharing like this. Okay, sharing like this with the phone is not really the best. I don't know. Either save it and send it in the WhatsApp or share your screen. Choose either you save it and share it in the WhatsApp group now so you can review it, or you share your screen. Showing like this isn't really the best. So here's what you do: either you save it and send it in the WhatsApp group, or you share your screen. So you choose which one you can do now. Okay, so everybody seeing my screen? You're seeing my screen, indicate yes. Okay, Okay, so today marks the beginning of week 2. So if you made it this far, I want to give you a big congratulations for remaining steady this far, for completing week 1 and entering into week 2. Remember, this course was a 6 weeks course, so 5 weeks to go. So today marks the beginning of week 2 and lesson 4. So in total there will be 18 lessons. So we're currently at lesson 4. So going higher, or flying. So in lesson 4 we'll be treating masking, retouching, and filters in Photoshop. I think this is what you've heard before. If you've been here with us, then you must have heard these words: masking, you must have heard of masking, you must have heard of retouching. I think on the theory, which was lesson 2, there was an assignment on retouching, which nobody actually submitted. Okay, so move on. The lesson outline here, we'll be treating what is image masking. I think you should have already got an idea about what image masking is. Techniques of masking in Photoshop, introduction to retouching tools, the healing brush, the clone stamp, and the spot healing. I think we've seen these tools already. Using filters for creative effects, and have a class practice and discussion. And the objectives of this lesson are simple. By the end of this lesson, learners should be able to understand and apply different masking techniques, which you can use to elevate your designs, retouch and enhance images professionally, use clone and healing tools to remove unwanted elements, apply filters to achieve creative visual styles, and prepare images for realistic compositing and marketing use. So what is masking in Photoshop? So masking simply allows parts of a layer to be hidden or revealed without deleting pixels. So when, for example, we saw how to remove the background of an image, we also talked about masking. We said when we're removing the background of the image, we're not deleting the background, but rather we're masking the background, which simply means that we're hiding the background so that just the subject is being seen. So the different types of masking techniques, you have layer mask, which controls transparency with black, white, or gray. We have clipping mask. I don't think we've seen we've seen clipping mask, but we've not seen everything a clipping mask can do. We've seen a layer mask, yes. When we're removing the background, we saw a layer mask. Layer mask controls transparency. Layer mask controls. Good evening, Mr. Harrison. The layer mask controls transparency. The clipping mask applies layer effects to the shape beneath it. We saw clipping mask when we're looking at adjustment layers, right? We said that if you want the adjustment to have effects only on the layer below it, you can use a clipping mask. And we said this is actually also a non-destructive editing method. We spoke about in the previous classes, we also spoke about what non-destructive editing is. So none of these terms are completely new. And when we're doing masking, we saw like two colors, which when you change, we saw the black and the white. The black hides while the white reveals. So let's head into Photoshop and let's look at what we're seeing here. So I hope you have your Photoshop already opened. Okay, previously I had given you a link. Let me just reshare this link again. The link to the Google Drive where you can find these images. I had shared it previously, but I'm just going to share it again. This is a link to the Google Drive where you have this image where we're going to be working with today. This image is there. So I click on this link, go to the Google Drive and download this image. Now so are we there? If you're there, send your reaction. Who has the image already? Or who is still struggling to get the image? Okay, so move on. So we saw layers, a layer mask. A layer mask controls transparency with black or white. So let's actually create a layer mask, and let's see how we'll create a layer mask and what a layer mask actually does practically in Photoshop. So we have this image here, for example. So we want to create a layer mask. What do? We come here, this is our layers panel in this section here, and if you look down, you will see this circle here, and inside this circle you will see this box, this rectangle here with the inner circle. This is what we're looking for. This rectangle here is the mask feature in Photoshop. So when I click on my layer here and then I click on this mask icon here, click it once, left click once, a small box appears beside my image like this, and this box is simply the mask. So what did we say here? We said on our presentation, we said black hides while white reveals. So let's look at what that means. So we've selected our layer mask here. We've clicked on our layer mask to select it. I click here to select it. So when I click here, if I go to the left side of my screen, I'll see these two squares here. The first one up has black, the second one down has white color. And what do we say about black? Black hides while white reveals. So the next thing I want to do now, after clicking on my layer mask and confirming that this box here are here, these two boxes are here, black and white colors, I go now and I select my brush tool. I look for the brush, is the brush here, just below the spot healing brush. The brush tool is just down here. This is the brush tool. So I'll click here to select the brush tool, or I can right click and select this is brush tool. So when I click the brush tool, this icon here appears. I can control the size of this icon by coming up here, clicking on this drop down here, and either increasing or decreasing the size. Let's increase and see how the size of the brush has increased. Let me increase it again, see how big it is now. Now let me reduce it and see how the size has changed. So you can control the size here. You can also control the hardness here. This is the difference between here. You can see difference. This is soft brush and this is a hard brush. So this is the difference here. Usually you want the brush to be soft. Usually you want it to be soft. But depending on the effect which you want to create, you might want it to be hard. But usually you want it to be soft. So you put the hardness to 0 and you can close the drop down here. So the black color now is on top. So if I come now on my image, now I click and I start painting, see what happens. It's like I'm erasing the image. It's like I'm erasing the image. But however, I'm not actually erasing this image. What I am doing is I am hiding this background. What do we say about black? We said black hides, white reveals. So once I select this black color here, select my brush and I come on the image and I start painting. I paint by clicking, maintaining my hand on the left click and dragging around the image. So what I'm actually doing is I am hiding these parts of this image. And if you look now on my mask, the parts that I use my brush to hide has turned black on my mask here. This masking. So if I now switch this brush, if I come down here, I click on this arrow here that points in 2 directions. I click on it once, it switches the colors. Now white is in front and black is behind. So if I come back now and start painting, what happens? I'll start painting back my background. As we said, black hides and then white reveals. White reveals. So if I start painting back like this, I can put my background as though nothing ever happened. So nothing ever happened. So some effects you can use to control this is you can use the opacity. Opacity simply means you can reduce or increase the transparency. So when you reduce the opacity, right? Reducing the opacity means you're increasing the transparency. So for example, let me select the black color now and let me increase this brush size maybe to 86. So now if I reduce my opacity to 27 and I come and paint here, it's not going to totally wipe off the image. See, it's wiping, but the image is still quite visible. That's what opacity does. Opacity is transparency. So the higher the opacity, the less transparent it is. And the lower the opacity, the more transparent it is. So because I set my opacity previously to 27, and I see as I painted, it didn't completely wipe off the image. The image is slightly visible in the background. Yeah. So you can use these effects to control how the masking affects the subjects, or to create effects on your design. You can press Ctrl Z to undo anything you're doing and come back to how it was. So we looked at that's layer mask. Another tool is the clipping mask. Before I go to clipping mask, let me show you another thing, the layer mask. We did how to remove backgrounds. We saw how to remove backgrounds previously. So we're going to remove the background from this image using a layer mask. So first of all, we're going to delete this mask which you put here by clicking on the mask and pressing on the backspace or delete button to delete the mask. So now how do we remove the background here by masking it? The first thing you do is make sure your layer is selected, and the next step is you come here on your tools and select this tool here, which is the quick selection tool. Once you click on the quick selection tool, this panel here will appear. Select subject. Select subject here permits you Photoshop will automatically detect the subject in your image and select it automatically. So when I click on select subject here, click on it once. It is loading. So Photoshop is detecting the subject. and in a few seconds the matching ants will appear. These lines are called matching ants. The matching ants will appear, exactly tracing out our subject. But these matching ants are not always perfect. Sometimes we need to readjust them. So when you do this, you want to zoom in on your subject to make sure the matching ants are actually taking the outline of your subject correctly. So when an image was taken with a good quality camera, the select subject feature usually gets it very right. But however, when you're working with low quality image, that's where it becomes problematic. You might want to adjust your settings. So for example here, the selection is not very okay because this is where the line of the dress comes in, like this, not down here. So what do? I can come up here and click on this icon which says negative, because the quick selection tool comes with two options, plus and negative. And what they do is simply to control the positioning of these matching ants on your subject. So now, for example, if I want to push this inwards, I will select the negative here and come outside here and click. Okay, instead I'll select the positive instead, sorry, and come outside here, click and try to withdraw it like this. Click and try to push it inside like that. So use these two tools here, the plus and the negative quick selection tools, to adjust your selection to make sure it actually takes just the outline of your subject. And you can just select anything: human beings, cars, cats, dresses. You can use the same method to select anything. So once I've looked at my selection and I see that everything is okay, click on this second option, this second rectangle here, the second button here, which says select and mask. When I click on it once, this panel here appears. So the first thing I want to do now is come here on the view here and select onion skin. The first one, onion skin. Select onion skin and increase the transparency to 100. See, this transparency to 15. Increase transparency to 100 so that it should clearly be visible behind the subject. So now the next options here are the radius. You can leave the radius as it is. Now you have the smooth option here, which controls the edges, right? How smooth the edges of your image are. If I increase it so much, you see the difference in the image. It's actually loading. Okay, so if we reduce the smoothness back to 0, you can see the effect it has on the borders of the image. So increasing the smoothness or reducing it makes it sharper or less sharper. See, this smoothness to 0 and this is smoothness to 100. When smoothness is set to 100, you see that this image, this outline here, is slightly more blurred than when it was when the smoothness was set to 0. Very slightly. So these settings here alter the image like this, alter your selection like this. So avoid overcharging these settings here. If not, you might, okay, it actually depends on the image which you have, but most of the time it might destroy it. So when you're adding these settings here, always check the image and see how the effects are actually acting on the image. they're actually enhancing it or destroying it. So the feather here makes the background a little bit blurry. This feather here, if we increase the feathers, you see the outline here. It rather increases the opacity in the background and also makes it blurry. So you see that this background here is now slightly transparent here, but that's not how you want your selection to look. You want your selection to look very crispy, so you want to avoid putting a lot of feathers for this image because we want our selection to look very crispy and sharp. Contrast as well. Let's increase the contrast and see how it affects the image. Let's increase the contrast. So you see the contrast has made these edges to be very thick, very sharp as well. It has filled the color, so the light which you had at the borders here from a reflection of light, it has just covered everything. So the image now looks kind of, so if you increase it too much, the outlines feels now too sharp. If you put this image, for example, on another background, it might just see the outline looks way too sharp. Unless this is the effect you're trying to produce, you might not want to add the contrast too much. But again, it all depends on the effect which you want to produce. So these settings will vary depending on the image you have in your at hand and the effect which you want to produce. But I don't want my image to have too much contrast. So I think for my image, I just want a little bit, because I want the edges to be a little bit smoother, for it to have a more natural feel when I put it on a background. And then the other option here is a decontaminate colors. Decontaminate colors, Photoshop, this actually works when your selection you're working with. This is actually very good when you're working with poor quality images. Poor quality image is always difficult to get a very accurate selection. So sometimes Photoshop, when you use a decontaminate colors feature, Photoshop would automatically detect those spots where the selection was not well made and try to fill them with colors which matches the pixels closer to that area. So if I click decontaminate colors here, let me just zoom in. If I turn it off, look at the edges. When I add it, you see a slight layer as if another extra line was added on the image, on the outline of the image. And when I remove it, it's like this outline was removed. So depending on your image, you will see whether to add it or remove it. But usually this is very good when you're working with poor quality images. Usually high quality image will not need you to decontaminate the colors. For me, this image is already perfect as it is. So now here comes the important part, the output. And here, what you want to select here, layer mask will create a mask on the layer, just like we did when we open this file. This is not what you want to do. You want to do a non-destructive editing. And if you were there in our previous classes, we said it is always good practice to duplicate the layers in order to keep an original and one which contains the edit. So if you just select this feature layer mask, it's not going to duplicate the layer. It's going to apply the layer on this image directly. New layer simply means no mask will be created. This new image without the background will be created in a new layer, but without the mask, meaning that you cannot edit it. However, this is what we're looking for, new layer with layer mask. So this will create a new layer by duplicating the image and then creating a layer mask on that image to mask the background. So click on this layer here and select OK and see what happens. So now this was our original layer here, original image, and this is a duplicate which was created with the layer mask and the background masked. I told you that the black portion is a portion which has been masked and the white portion is a portion which is visible. We said black is hidden and white is visible. So this is our new image now here with no background. So in order to save it, you can also save this image as a reusable file. Welcome, Mr. Helson. You can save this image as a reusable file. That is a file as an image without background. Normally, this image, when you take this image with your camera or with your phone, normally your camera does not have the ability to take just this image and not capture the background as well. But in Photoshop, it permits you to remove the background and keep just the subject. So now how do you save it so that this image remains like this without the subject? You simply go to File, you go to Export here, Export As, and in the format here, you choose PNG. PNG files are files without the background. As you see, when we choose PNG, this area became like this with the onion skin. This background is called the onion skin. It simply indicates that there's no background on this image. The only thing present on this image is this subject here. So select PNG. PNG is the extension, is the file format for image with no background. And when you select PNG, you simply can go down here and click on this blue button here that says Export. Let's click on Export. So here now you can select where you want to store your file, and you can also rename it. My first PNG. And click on Save. So now let's say I wanted to now add this image back on another design. Let's say we're removing this image to add it on a flyer design. So let's just say this was our canvas for the design, right? I want to add this image there. So we can simply go back to our folder where we store this file. Go back to the folder where we store this file. This is it here. As you can see, the image appears with no background on it. I can simply click and drag it and drop it here on the image. So yeah, is it. The image appears with no background. So if you have done this, it means you've successfully removed the background from an image. Now you can apply this image on your design as you wish or as you see fit. And this same process works whether you're trying to make the background of a dog, of a bottle, of a mouse, of a computer, of a phone. The same process works. Though there are other ways as well. This is not the only way. Right, there are other ways which you can remove the background or select a subject from an image. So let's select it. So here, over here, let me look at something. Okay, remember I told you about the quick selection tool which was found here. If you right click on the quick selection tool, you see these options, other options that will appear here. This was the quick selection tool here. We also have the magic wand tool and the object selection tool. The object selection tool simply helps you to draw a rectangle around the object which you want to select, and Photoshop would automatically identify that object. So let's say I select this object selection tool here and make sure I click on the layer which contains that image which I want to remove the subject. I come here and right click and select my object selection tool. And now, so what do I do now? I simply come on my canvas here and draw a rectangle. I showed you how to add a shape. So you do as if you were drawing a shape, right? A rectangle. So you click on your screen and drag it around the subject which you want to be selected. When I do this, I release it. See that Photoshop has selected this object. So where is this tool useful? This tool is useful when you have an image with many subjects on it. So let's just say you took a group picture with your friends, and you want to select a particular person from the picture, or maybe something is blocked. Maybe there was a cat that was passing in front of you and you want to select that particular cat to remove it. So you can use this object selection tool and just draw a shape around it, and Photoshop will automatically create a selection like this around that image. So are we getting, are we all there? Are we together? If we're there, you can send a reaction. If you're lost, you can ask a question. You can send your inquiry in the chat if you don't want to open your mic. Okay, so no question, so we'll proceed. So that's what the object selection tool does. And from here, you go through the same process which we mentioned before. You can select your quick selection tool to refine your selection. After refining your selection, select and mask as we did before, same process. So the next tool here is the magic wand. So let's do some Control Z to go back. Yes, the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool. So what the magic wand tool selects an area based on its color. The magic wand selects an area based on its color. So from here, so we can reverse engineer the thing. So from here, what we did initially was we came and selected this subject, right, to extract it from its background. But with the magic wand tool, I can also come and select this background here and extract it from its subject by clicking, just by selecting the magic wand tool and clicking on this space here just once. So Photoshop automatically cut out just this background. And again, just like the others, you can use your quick selection tool and come back right here, select the quick selection tool and fine tune. You can increase the size as well, so size is too small, and fine tune this. You see, you can select negative to push this outwards like this. So are you getting? So there are different ways you can use the selection tools: the object selection, the quick selection tool, and the magic wand tool. And I didn't go over the quick selection tool. So another way is you can directly come, let's cancel this. You can select the quick selection tool and do the selection manually. The quick selection tool here also permits to do the selection manually. So I can come and select the plus here and simply start drawing manually on my image to select it. This is also useful when you have an image with a lot of people there and you want to select one particular person. So you can come and use this quick selection tool to manually select that person from the image by simply manually drawing it like this. select my quick selection tool, for example, and manually draw around this girl in order to select her from this design. Like this with my quick selection tool, and fine-tune it. So fine-tune it until I can reduce the size, zoom in, I can reduce the size and zoom in now to fine-tune my selection like this. I press the negative to push it here down. So you can manually select on images with a lot of background, a lot of subjects, or where the background is not well defined. You can manually select it like this. If the automatic select by using select subject doesn't work, so this is an alternative to select. So this obviously will take you more time because you're doing everything manually from scratch. Manually fine-tuning everything from scratch. So it will most likely take you more time. So you can reduce your size in order to have a better selection, especially with areas which involve more detail, like these very small areas, like this with more detail. So it might be very troublesome to get it right, to get it absolutely right. So you might want to zoom in a little bit in order to fine-tune your selection. So once you're fine-tuned and everything looks okay, my mouse is disturbing. Once you fine-tune it and you feel as though everything looks okay, same process can go to select you've already selected the subject. In this case, you've already selected the subject, so you don't need to select the subject again. You did manually, so you just go to directly to select and mask directly. Select and mask here, and you will land here. This is your selection, so you can fine-tune it just as you did before by controlling the smooth on the edges. So if I increase the smooth too much, let's say it affects the edges, or reduce it. You see that adding the smooth too much smooth doesn't do well to the background. See this yellow part of the image start showing. So we want to keep it little to none. If you add a feather tool, you can say it affects the image. Might not be what we are looking for. What about the contrast? The contrast makes the edges a little bit sharper. This might be useful to us as our image is very blurry at the corners, at the edges. And the contaminate colors, which will fill the colors. In our own case here, it actually destroys the image. You can see, so it's not very useful. Also, once you fine-tune your selection, simply go down, click on the drop down here and select and you press on OK. Give me a minute. Okay, new layer mask and select OK. So there you have it, your selection, which you can now use in your design as you see fit. So now we spoke about like how you can actually use these masks in order to arrange this design again or to add some effects on it. So let's just say now this background here, this bottom here is too sharp. I want to make it a little bit smoother, right? You can select the mask here, and we set black wipes and white, black height, white reveal. So here we want to wipe the layer, so we'll select black, select our brush tool here, and we might want to decrease the opacity a little bit. Let's just say 12. So if we come now here, let's reduce our brush a little bit. So if we come down here, for example, let's increase it and draw down here. See, it wipes it, but not too much. Right, so now we can increase our opacity now, and okay, not to the fullest, and wipe this last layer here. So now increase it again to the fullest and wipe it again. So now I've created a disappearing effect on the image. Are you seeing? So now if it's as well as you go down from here, the image smoothly disappears down. These are some effects which you can use on your designs to make it look better or increase some effects. And how do we do that? With the use of the mask tool here. So we clicked on the mask, and our aim was to hide some layers. So we select the black color here, make sure the black color was in front. We choose our brush and we controlled the effects of the brush with the opacity. First of all, applied the brush with a very low opacity, then increase the opacity a little bit more to 70, apply the brush again, and then increase to 100 and apply the brush again, and it created this smooth disappearing effect on the image. So for example, if we added a background color here on this image, for example, let's look for a shape. And set the color, let's just say to green, and set it behind this background. So let's click on this mask again and apply our brush once more at the bottom here. So now it creates an effect as though the girl was disappearing into the background. So that's just one way we could use the mask. You could think of other creative ways that you can use it. So back to our slides here, we'll talk about also the clipping mask. Applies layer effects to the shape beneath it. So when we saw adjustment layers before. We saw adjustment layers before. For example, we said to add an adjustment layer, you can come and select this circle here, click on it, and let's say for example vibrance and saturation. Let me just put this one on as well, the second layer here, and move it so it looks maybe like this. Okay, let's just do this so you see the difference. So now with vibrance and saturation, when I click on it, you notice that this vibrance has this mask beside it, about automatically comes with a mask. If you noticed. So if I increase maybe the vibrance, you see when you increase the vibrance, it makes the color more vibrant, actually vibrant or less vibrant. That's what the vibrant adjustment does. Let's just increase the vibrance like this and increase saturation like this. Saturation increases the intensity of the colors, makes the colors more intense. So you can see how our image have changed by applying these two settings here. But now, what if I want this vibrance to apply just to this layer here, not to this layer here? How do I do that? I do that by simply right-clicking on this vibrance layer and selecting this option here which says create a clipping mask. So once I click on this small arrow here appears, and now whatever adjustment I add on this layer will only be affected on this particular layer here. So this one is not affected. So if you now look at this image, you see this one now is the one that has the increased vibrance saturation, but this one is still as it was before because of the clipping mask. It was applied just on this layer but not on this one. That's what the clipping mask does. And how can I use mask feature on this clipping mask? If I click on this mask here on the clipping mask here, we set what? We set black hides while white reveals. Right, that's what we said. So let's just yes, black hides, right? Let's select our brush, right? So let's just say we wanted this vibrance to apply just to his face, but the rest of his body should not be applied. The vibrance should not be applied to the rest of this body. So I can control this using the mask here, which comes automatically with all the adjustment layers. So when I click on the mask, I click on the black because the black hides. Select my brush, and now I come here. Let me increase my size of my brush a little bit. So when I start drawing on the hand, what happens? Okay, let me increase my opacity back to 100 so you can see the effect fully. When I start drawing here, what happens to the hand? All the vibrance which I had put here disappears. The hand now becomes as it was originally. And look at it on my layer on the vibrance. So this part here has become black. So this pattern now has been hidden. So I can also click like this and remove the vibrance from the other parts of the area of the image. So these are some things you can do when you're editing pictures. Or if you want to see the difference on the face, let me zoom in so you see the difference. Let me just click here. Let me increase so it becomes more intense so you see the difference. So let me come back and click on my mask here, and now I'll apply it. Let me click on my mask. So now if I come to the face now, let me just wipe this portion. Are you now seeing the difference? So with the use of my mask, I removed the effect on this part of the face and kept it just on this part of the face. So now this part of the face has this vibrant setting, but this one does not because I have hidden it. But let's say I wanted to put it back, I can simply come here, change it and put the white, since the white reverse, and come back and paint here again with my brush, and the vibrance is back. So that's how you can use your mask to control the settings or control the effects on your images. This is very good when you're editing pictures. So the masking tool will be your closest friend, especially when it comes to editing of pictures. So you can control what setting is applied on which particular part of the image using the masks tool. So masking techniques, we've already seen some of these masking techniques using brush tool with mask, paint on the mask to show height parts. We've seen this, we just saw it just now. Creating masks for soft blending between images, select subjects plus mask, auto masking using AI. We've seen this already, so select subject plus mask. Refine edge tool for hair and soft object masking. Best for composite graphic, removing backgrounds and creative blends. Just saw how I creatively blended our selected subjects and our green background for that girl, for the image of that girl. So you can apply it in different settings, right? So now you have to make use of your creativity in how you apply it on your picture or on your design to create a particular effect. So let's do some retouching overview. We saw how to use these tools already. We saw how to use the spot healing brush, the healing brush tool, and they're used for enhancing portraits, product photos, and more. And the aim here is to create clean, natural look. Some of the tools used here are the spot healing brush, the clone stamp tool, the healing brush, and the patch tool. These tools simply enable you to remove blemishes, spots, stains from images. That's what this tool does. And we saw this tool back in lesson 2 and 3. We saw these tools in lesson 2 and 3. I'm just going over them again. So we're now going to go back on Photoshop on this because I've already shown you how to use them and I've told you to practice using them. So we're not going to go back on this at this moment. But these tools are used to remove dark spots, remove blemishes, stains from images in order to make them more clean, more smooth, more natural. For example, an image of somebody with a lot of pimples, you can use these tools now to remove those pimples and make the face smoother. So the difference between the spot healing and the clone stamp is the spot healing removes spots, blemishes instantly and works best on smooth textures. So it's simply to tell you which one is to use when. The clone stamp copies exact pixel area, and while the healing brush blends texture and color. Or maybe you can just look at it one more time. Let's take an example. Let's very sharply, very fast. Let's just go here. So it sets the spot healing, remove spots, blemishes instantly. So where's our spot healing here? When I click here, use the spot healing brush. and you can select the size. So if you come and you zoom in on your image, for example this is spot here. If I click here, Photoshop instantly remove this spot. As I said, removes plot blemishes instantly. Buckle on smooth textures. What about the clone stamp tool? Copies exact pixel area. So with the clone stamp tool, if I click here, okay, here this is the clone stamp tool here. If I click here and select this, the clone stamp tool, what it does, it copies pixels from one part of the image and uses it to paste on the other part. So for example, I can come here, I press my hand on Alt and maintain Alt, click here, then I come to this area where I want to replace, and now I click. It replaces with the pixels from that area. So I collected pixels here from a dark area and I came and put it in a bright area. That's why you're seeing these spots. So let's collect pixels from a bright area rather instead. So someplace like here, I can press Alt, collect pixels from here. Then if I come now here and click, you see now this place looks like this place. I can click here like this. So click here. So the difference here is with the clone stamp tool, you clone a particular portion of pixels and go and paste it in another area. The healing brush blends texture plus color. Where is the healing brush here? There's a healing brush here. There's a healing brush. Repairs imperfections by painting with pixels from another part of the image. So you can here too, you use the Alt key to select the part of the image which you want to use. Let's just see here. So you can come here and click once to paint. So now the difference here with the healing brush is the healing brush does not just collect the pixels like that. The healing brush collects the texture and the color of the place. So when it's matching it in this place, it doesn't just paste it as you saw it. It tries to match it with the texture and the pixels of this area in order to make the new portion smoother, like this. So there's just some basic differences between these tools and how to use them. So next thing we're going to look at is the content aware tool, the content aware fill. Autofills moves paste based on nearby pixels. It is ideal for removing backgrounds, fixing torn or old photos, cleaning busy images. It's also used for editing text on an image. So let's look at an example. Let's just say, like for example, this flyer here. Let me turn up these layers. So you have this flyer here, for example. This flyer was not done on Photoshop, it was done on Illustrator. But let's just say I didn't have the source file of this flyer again, but I wanted to edit it. But I don't have the source file of this flyer. And what do I want to change? Maybe I wanted to change this portion here. From we to you, maybe you are. And then change this portion here to me. So how do I do that? So now I can simply do that by coming here and selecting this tool here called the lasso tool. This one here, right click and come here, the lasso tool. And what the lasso tool does here is the lasso tool makes a freehand selection. In other words, unlike these other tools here, down here, where Photoshop kind of helps you to do a selection, with the lasso tool, you're doing it completely by yourself. So you simply zoom in on the area and you click and maintain your hand and draw around it, for example like this. So yes, create the selection based on my drawing. I make sure the layer which I actually want to edit is selected, because Photoshop is all about layers. If the wrong layer is selected, it's not going to work. I click on this layer because this is where the image is. So now what do I do next? I come now to this portion here on edit, and I go down to content aware fill here. I select content aware fill. And instead Photoshop is trying to cover this area, but the selection is not perfect. Why? What this content aware fill does is, this green color here is trying to collect pixels from this image that matches this area that we're trying to cover. So once it collects these pixels from this image that matches this area, it's going to replace this selected area with the pixels which is collected from the other part of the image. So the reason why it's not perfect here, we have these black things here, because if you look at this green color here, the green color is also covering this text. So meaning that this text is now part of our selection. That's why these lines appear. But I want this place to be completely yellow. So I don't want this black here. So I will make sure now that in this selection here, none of these black colors are involved in the selection. So I can control the size of my brush, make it not too big, and wipe out these areas that have this black color, because I don't want them to be included in my selection like this. I can just wipe them out. So I wipe them out because this brush is the negative you selected. If I select the plus, it draws it back. The negative I can delete. So I want to delete all the black areas of this selection so that the black color will not be involved in the selection. And you notice that as I am removing the black colors, selection is getting better. It's getting better as I'm moving the black colors. It's getting better. Look at it now. It's as if there was no text was ever there, like this. And once this is done, I can simply press on OK here. And then this is my new image. I click now on these lines here, they disappear. This is my image now, as though there was never anything written there. Another way you can also use this is to edit documents. You can edit documents, but be careful. I'm not saying that you use to falsify documents, but you can use this to edit documents and modify the content of those documents by using this method. Any document in image format or even PDF format. So you can now select your text tool and come here and type as though you were typing an entirely new so can highlight it and change the color by coming here. I can use a color picker tool in order to select this like this and press OK. So when I click on the color here, this box appears here. So let's just say I wanted it to have the same color as this text here, right? I'm not obliged to come and try to look for the color here on the color picker. I can simply come on my screen here. See, as I come on my screen, so the cursor has changed. The cursor now looks like an eyedropper. I can now click on the color which I want this my text to have, and I want it to have this color here. If I click on the white, see, you have to have white color. If I click on the yellow, I have the yellow color. Click on the black, for example, on this girl's skin, this is the girl's skin. Click on the black to have the black color. So this color picker simply selects the color. Wherever you click now, it selects the color of the portion that you clicked, and it's going to automatically apply it to this text or shape if it was a shape that we created. And we can simply press OK. So now the color here matches the color here. I can now change the font to look for a font which fits. For example, I'll just go down and look for fonts and check for a font which fits that font. And we can also resize it. Like this. So now we have successfully modified the content of this flyer, even though we do not have the source file. We have successfully modified the content of the text of this flyer. So this can be used in any other thing, not just text. It can also be used to modify portions of an image, even images or sceneries. So for example, you have this scenery, you want to change a particular portion of the scenery, a tree for example, or an image. It works not just for text but for any graphic. So if I have like a picture of any scenery, I don't think I do. Let's just see. So we have this. Let's look at what we can do here. So let's select our lasso tool and let's try and draw a small cutout here and see what we can do with this. And we'll go to edit, content away fill. So we'll try to wipe this building so the building does not get included in the selection. So like this. We can also do this, for example, click on the plus here, zoom in and add is tiny. Delay and see whether it adds some value. I don't think it does. I don't think this has any value. So now when we're done, we'll press OK. So we can click here to remove this. When the cursor turns white, you click to remove. And this is how a new image looks like. So as I said, you can apply it not just to text but to any image. Now it is as though this tower never had that antenna on it. So that is the power of content away fill. Photoshop automatically detects the surrounding pixels and use it to replace the pixels which had your selection. So next thing we're going to look at right now are the filters. The filters in Photoshop. And the filters simply found on your filter panel, on your filter menu. On the filter menu, you have your different filters here, such as the Gaussian blur, motion blur, sharpen, oil paint, camera raw filter. and filters can be used creatively or for touch-ups. Use smart filters for non-destructive edits. So what we're going to look at today is simply the blur filter. I'm not going to look at everything today. We're going to look at just the blur filter. So for example, on this design, right, if you notice clearly, here is kind of bluish and here is kind of yellowish, like this. But how do we do this? How do we make this place here to be kind of yellowish, white? This is kind of whitish with a tint of blue. And we simply did this effect using the Gaussian blur filter. So we set a background to white and we created a circle, a yellow circle, and gave it the Gaussian blur filter and increased it to its maximum for it to appear like this. Let's look at this in a practical way. So let's some file and new. Let's use 1080 by 1080 and press create very fast. So we'll have this. So we're going to use this rectangle here to create our initial background, which we will set to white. That's our initial background. And now we're going to now create a circle, right? We're going to create an ellipse, a circle here. We press shift, we maintain the hand on shift when we're creating for the circle to maintain a perfectly circular shape. So this is our circle here. So we can give this circle this green color over here, like this. Let's duplicate this layer, we'll come back to it later. We can duplicate, maintaining our hand on Alt, clicking and dragging it up of the duplicated by maintaining our hand on Alt key, holding it, clicking, dragging and dropping up, create a duplicate. So in this duplicate here, we're going to apply this Gaussian blur filter by coming to the filters panel and going to blur, going here to Gaussian blur, and this Photoshop will ask us to convert the layer to a smart object. Converting it to a smart object will simply mean that the filter which will add would be non-destructive. Would you explain what non-destructive editing is? It means it can be modified. Convert to smart object. And now here you can control the radius of your blur, of your Gaussian blur. Let's put it to 0 and you will see how it looks like. It's 0. We'll increase it slowly so you see the difference. This 1.9, see it's become blurry at the corners. This is at 3.1. See, this is at 4.9. Getting more and more blurry. 18. You're seeing the outline is no longer completely visible like the original. At 18. It's at 58. 58. This is at 121. This is at 159. This is at 193. So when you're done, you press OK. So okay, let me lock this layer a little bit so we can move this one. So you now see how it appears. You now see how it appears on our canvas, like this. So you can use some of these things in order to create some stylish effects on your backgrounds or your foregrounds. For example, we use this blur when we're creating this let me open it, this flyer here. This is what we use the Gaussian blur on the background with the green and the yellow color to create this effect on the background. So an integral part of your design is how you design your background. So a background, so if on this background, for example, we had put a plain white color, it won't have produced the same effect as when we use this Gaussian blur in order to put some of this colorful effect on the background. If we had simply just drawn 4 shapes, 2 yellow circles and 2 green circles, it wouldn't have also appeared the same way. So these are tiny effects which you add to your image, which changes everything. So designing is all about these tiny small details which you add into your design. These tiny small details, and these tiny small details change everything about your design. So you can even spend hours and hours and hours just arranging and fixing the tiny small details if you're a highly creative person, or before you can actually come out with something which looks particularly stunning. So I'm showing you all of these effects, all of these filters, all of these tools, and showing you how to use them. But now it's up to you to think about how you're going to input them into your creative idea or into your design based on what you want to do or how you want to take the design. So you're now the one to see how you're going to do that. For example, on this layer, what I can do as well is I can increase the brightness of this layer. I can add an adjustment layer for brightness. For example, I can create a clipping mask so it applies just on this layer and increase the brightness on the image to create a certain particular effect. I can add other adjustment layers to it, like the levels, like the levels. Like the levels, which I can shift this one here to make it okay. Let me use the clipping mask. I can shift it here to make it darker, or shift like this to make it brighter, for example. So you can apply these settings on the background or even on your foreground of your image. Let's take an example with this man here. And let's copy, Control C and go here, Control V. So let's put him below this layer. So one thing I can also change here is the opacity. I can come to opacity and reduce the opacity and also reduce the fill here of this color, and I can lock it as well. So if I now displace, I can displace this one below it, and I now give this certain blue overlay filter on the image. If I turn this off, so it looks, and if I turn this back on, it looks like this. So these are just subtle changes which you can add in order to create a particular effect on your design, depending on how you're trying to move this creative direction of yours, depending on the effect you're trying to produce. So far so good. So far so good. You can send a reaction. It's so far so good. Okay. So the other filters apart from the Gaussian blur filter, you have motion blur, sharpen, oil paint, and you can experiment with these different filters and see how they affect. We'll look more of them as we move forward. But this is just to let you know these are there and these are things you can add to your design depending on what you're trying to produce. You can experiment on this on your own free time. And we're going to look more about them as we continue, as we proceed. So when to use filters? You can use filters to enhance focus or to blur backgrounds, right? For example, as we selected this subject here, on this image here, for example, right? Can we go back? This is our history here. We're going to go back to the moment we selected the subject. Here, for example, this was the moment selected subject, right? So we can put this layer back on. So another way we can use Gaussian blur is we can come here and duplicate this layer again like this, put off this one, and on this layer now, we can come to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. We're going to reduce this Gaussian blur so much like this. So we have now blurred the background of this image. So it's not actually very visible because the background of this image has just one particular color, which is the gray color. But if this was maybe on a background with a more lively color, we would have clearly seen how we blur this background. Or you can take another example, another image. Let's look from our image options. This image, for example. Okay. Let's close this and add that image. Now, let's add this image. Okay, this image was already blurred, but we can see increase the blurriness. Let's just do this very fast. Select subject. We're not going to refine it. You have to go faster. But for this now to refine an image, just going to go directly, select and max to go faster, and new layer mask. Okay. Layout layer max. Then we're going to duplicate this background. Okay, background was locked. Let's duplicate it. Then turn this off. Then on this here, and add a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, no, here instead. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur like this. You can press on OK here. So if you put off this layer and put this one on, you will see that on this layer here, the background is more blurry than here. The background is more blurry. So you can do this like to, when you add blur effects on the background, it makes the subject pop out more. So for example, if this was maybe a picture of me from a photo shoot, for example, and it's something maybe you can add to make the picture pop out a little bit more, if that's actually what you're trying to do, because editing all depends on the effect you're trying to produce. So this is how you can add blurriness on the background of an image. You can also increase this image selection here. This one here, let's press Ctrl T. Let's increase it. Like this, for example. I'm going to turn this off and come on this layer here. I'm going to select our lasso tool here. I'm going to go around this image like this. So one image. Okay, we're here. I'm going to go on image. Content I will fill. This might not be the best. The output might not be the best. The output might not be the best. So we were supposed to make this selection a little bit closer for it to have a better output. But anyways, so you can do this, for example, you press on OK here. So like this. So just increase this image without necessarily destroying the background. So this was just a rough outlook. This was not the best, but this was just a rough outlook. So now she looks bigger, but the background looks as if unchanged, as if nothing happened. So we said we can use filters to enhance focus, for example, by blurring the background, to add mood in bracket, green or color filters. Right? We saw the Gaussian filter, but it's not the only filter. So there are others which you can experiment and see the effects on the image. Stylized designs, oil paint, sketch effects, sharpen details for social or print quality. So I'll advise you a lot to, on your next design, experiment on these filters, right? Try different filters on your image, on your background, on your foreground, and see how it looks like in design, or in fact anything practical, anything tech. You learn by doing. And avoid over filtering, right? Always aim for subtlety. So when you're adding your filters, always check if it actually matches. Does it match your background? Does it match your foreground? Does it match your image? Does it match your text? So don't just add your filters blindly. Okay, so we've reached the end of this session of today. Well, now is the time for some discussions. And the first question which I'll ask is, what's the advantage of using layer mask over deleting parts of an image? I think Faith, you're the only one left here. Okay, I'm the only one left. Okay, it's time for discussion. What's the advantage of using layer mask over deleting parts of an image? How would you use clone stamp differently from spot healing? Which filter would work best for giving a dreamy portrait look? And how can retouching be misused in marketing or branding? And the practice activity is to choose a picture of your choice, purchase the product, and remove blemish retouching tools. Use layer masking to blend subject with new background. Apply creative filter and save as a PSD and export as a JPEG. So this marks the end of our session. Thank you all for attending, and I will see you all next class.